Welcome to The Pulse, where we delve deep into the issues and ideas that are shaping the future of education. I'm your host, Rick Surrency, Superintendent of the Putnam County School District, and each week we'll be talking to teachers, administrators, and other experts in the field about the latest trends, best practices, and most pressing concerns in education. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just someone who cares about education, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the pulse. Welcome to our podcast today, and I'm very honored to have Senator Tom Leek. He's here with us today and talking about the Florida Legislature and some of the things that he has going on and some of his priorities. And Senator Leek, welcome, and very privileged to have you today.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it.
Tell the audience, just in case they're not familiar with you, give us a little background about yourself. I know you were in the House, but maybe give us a little more background about Tom Leek.
Oh, sure. Well, listen, I was a very happy lawyer practicing privately and living a great life until 2016 when the opportunity came to run for the Florida House of Representatives. And you can imagine how some of these conversations go, right? I went to my wife and I said, hey, how would you like to give up this kind of comfortable life and living in anonymity and put ourselves out there for all the public to enjoy? And she got there. So did my girls. And so 2016, I ran for the Florida House for the first time. And, I had a really good run in the Florida House. I ended up as the chair of the Appropriations Committee,
Right.
which is the chair that, puts together the budget for the state. And we had a $117.5 billion budget that year. And just had a really good run. And enjoyed what I was doing for the people. I love the policy side of it. Could do without the campaign side of it, but I love the policy side of it, and I like to do the work. And so we decided that there was an opportunity to join the Senate, and of course, that was its own thing. But we went and when I say we, I mean my wife and I, my family, we committed to it, and we went and ran for the Senate and serving the first term in the Senate.
So how's that first time been? I mean, compared to all the years you had in the House?
Yeah, it's very different, but it's also very satisfying and very enjoyable. Now in the House, you're one of 120,
right?
And your influence is basically determined by the position you hold, and it's basically Speaker of the House, approach chair, leadership team, and on down. In the Senate, you're one of 40, and so your vote carries a little bit more weight right out of the box. And so there's opportunity to shape policy a little bit better on an independent basis than there is for just your average member of the House of Representatives.
I visited
that part I love.
I visited the House chamber, and Senate President was there, and really talked about the culture there is you agree to be disagreeable.
Yeah.
Or if I'm quoting that right, how's that in the House? Is it the same kind of culture there as far as being able to disagree in a civil manner?
Oh yeah, I mean the House is a little less that way. My favorite description of the two bodies was that in the House you have your commander in chief, you have your generals, you have your lieutenants and on down, and everybody kind of marches together to get the work done that the commander in chief sets forth. The Senate, they compared to 40 Somali warlords who go out and fight over the same piece of territory every day, only to go home and have dinner and start over tomorrow.
That's a pretty good comparison. So let me ask you about last year. I know last year was pretty unique, at least in my recent memory. I know there's a lot of disagreement about the budget, and it kind of went on like 100 and something days or so. I lost count.
106, I think it was, yeah.
Somewhere in there. So tell me, what do you perceive this year, and what are some lessons learned from last year that hopefully this will be more of a briefer session, if you will?
Yeah, I think it will be shorter in duration. I think it will be as fiery. At least I have no indication that any of the issues that we had last year have waned. And in a nutshell, you've got the House has a real problem with the governor. You've got the House has a problem with the Senate. And, it just creates for just unnecessary tumult. And honestly, I don't think it's a good look for the legislature. I don't think it's a good look for Republicans. But it kind of is what it is, right? And that's why we have term limits, and soon that stuff will come to an end.
Well, it's much different than it was, two years ago. You had a Republican governor, and both houses were Republican, I believe, and seems like everything went smooth. But that things change from year to year, I know.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we still have a Republican governor, and still have both chambers are Republican. It's just the personalities are different.
Right. Well, tell me this. I know everything we're hearing now is about the property tax situation and all that. What can you say about that? I know there's already been some bills filed about, doing away with property tax or reducing it. What's kind of your, if you had a crystal ball, what do you see happening?
Yeah, the House has put forth some proposals, but they're all conflicting. It's kind of this kind of potpourri of different ideas, and that's kind of where I think we are. We have an idea, but we don't have a plan. Everyone recognizes that we've got to do something on property tax because they've just, quite frankly, escalated out of control. And it's part the the product of our own prosperity, where everyone wants to move to Florida, so the values of homes are going up. It's also the product of inflation. But what we know is what people are paying today is unsustainable and makes Florida unaffordable. So something's got to be done. Now, because of the reliance of school districts and local governments on property taxes, you can't just go in and rip that Band-Aid off and hope for the best. Right. You have to have a well thought out plan. I haven't seen that yet. And what the House has put forward is interesting to me, but it's not in the form of a plan. What the House has put forward is kind of a grab bag of ideas. And I think their thought is they're going to put all of those on the ballot and let the voter decide what they want to do. My experience is that's not terribly successful, right? You could end up with the voters approving everything, and you have conflicting ideas in there, right? It's not one or the other. It's you can vote yes or no on each one of them, mm-hmm. Or you end up with nothing getting done. I think there's got to be a coherent plan that's put forth to the voters. This requires the voters to pass it because it's in our Constitution. So whatever comes out is going to require voter approval.
Do you see the sales tax increasing at all, or is that
I mean, that's one of the options I've heard out there. I don't know. I mean, I don't. Like I said, we've got an idea, right? We don't have a plan. Personally, I think this requires a great deal of thought before you go down that road, and I'm not sure we've had enough time to do that yet. I suspect. If I had a crystal ball, this is what I would think would happen. We will put forth some immediate property tax relief coming out of this session. That won't likely be the final expression of what happens, because some of it's going to require more time to think through. And so I would say over the next several years, you will see a property tax group of laws come about that will change the way Florida relies on property tax. But I don't know that you see 100% of it this year. I do think you will see some major property tax relief coming out of this session. I just don't think it's the end of it. I think it continues for the next several sessions.
So kind of a gradual process as we go. So let me ask you this. Property insurance, I know that was one of the items last year. And given the continued concerns about the affordability, what additional reforms or oversight do you believe are needed to stabilize the rates and protect our homeowners? And how do you balance consumer protection with the insurers' concerns, and are there specific proposals you hope to advance in this coming session?
Yeah, so if you recall what was happening before we went through the major reforms that we had in 22 and 23, we had consumers were feeling double-digit increases in their rates, and which of course bled over to the premium. Once we made those revisions in 22 and 23, Florida now has a slight increase, average increase in rate of I think around 1%, but the lowest increase in the country of all of the major states. And we have, I think we're up to 18 new carriers who have entered the market. Remember, one of the reasons you saw all of the increases is because no one would write insurance in Florida.
Right.
They were leaving the state and going elsewhere. Right? They just didn't want to do business here. But because we made the reforms that we made, now they're slowly coming back into the market. I think we have 18 new carriers lined up. I think what will continue to happen is you will see rates continue to go down. And so let me say this. You've got, your premium, and everybody bases it on their premium. So do I. How do I feel about it? Based on what I have to write a check for. Your premium is the function of the rate being charged by the insurance carrier and the cost of replacement,
Right.
which is dramatically impacted by inflation. So with the rates, we've gotten under control. Inflation, I think the Trump administration is doing a great job, and I think that they are getting inflation under control. We'll see some changes in the Fed rate, some things that impact inflation. Once that inflation number starts to come down, you will also see the premiums come down.
How about things like hurricanes?
So what the carriers will tell you is they can model in storms left and right. What they couldn't model out was the fraud that was taking place in the litigation. Remember, Florida had, I think it was 8% of all property insurance claims filed in the country occurred in the state of Florida, but nearly 80% of all of the litigation took place in the state of Florida.
Okay.
I mean, it was insane, just insane.
So let's talk about education for a minute, since that's kind of my gig. And of course, I know we hear a lot about choice and parent rights and all that, and and I'm a firm believer in choice. But what are you hearing from school districts, and kind of the impact, and are you getting any kind of input from other school districts about the impact it's having on their bottom line or their enrollment and that type thing?
Yeah, sure. I hear about it, and in some instances, I think you've seen the school populations drop in some districts.
Yeah.
Other instances, it's dropped very little. It is wildly popular and wildly effective for 90% of the parents out there and the students. What we have to work through is the impact on public school districts.
Right.
And so, for instance, there was I think it was a once a year, maybe twice a year calculation of students who were there and students who weren't there, which of course all of the money was pinned on. We have since gone back, and I think we do that. You might know this better than I do. I think we do that quarterly now.
Yes, it's quarterly.
Yeah, we do it quarterly to try to even out some of those bumps and make sure that the school district's getting credit for those kids who tried a private education or a charter school, didn't like it, and wanted to come back. That money will follow that child.
And I think that's a good step. I think they're definitely making modifications that make sense. Let me ask you about it's very popular. I know the Senate president was really touting this, the Rural Renaissance Bill. Do you see that coming back? And if so, do you see it coming back in the same form from last year? Or what are you hearing about that?
Yeah, I do see it coming back. I know it's very important now because of the tension between the two chambers and the Speaker and the Senate President. I don't know that it comes back and immediately gets endorsed and becomes law. But you got to give the Senate President some credit as well. He was able to do some of Rural Renaissance in a quiet way through some piecemeal aspects of it last year that didn't get hung up. You might see more of that this year. As far as a giant Renaissance or Rural Renaissance package, I don't know that would make it through the House. So I don't know if that's the best strategy, but I do think you see pieces of it come back.
And I saw that. Last year I think it was kind of like you said, divided up into different bills. So being from a small rural district, we're very much anxious to see the outcome of that. So it would definitely be a game changer for us. So tell me this: we're in, we've been in for about 15, 20 minutes or so, but talk to me about what are some of your priorities, some things that you'd like to see happen in this upcoming session.
Yeah, I tell you, one of the things that's really important, we kind of touched on before, which was what proposals do I see coming forth to protect the consumer with making insurance claims. And I think if you're going to pay as much money as we pay as consumers for property insurance, you should at least expect the right that your claim will be adjusted fairly and quickly. And so I put together a proposal last year that didn't make it across the finish line. I'm working on, I'll put it together and put it out this year as well. But it essentially says this, that if you are a consumer or the carrier, by the way, if either one of you gets dissatisfied with the pace at which the claim adjudication is going, you could pull a lever. And when you pull that lever, it will take that claim and put it into a hearing process where within 60 days, or 90 days. Just pick a number. I've chosen 60, but 60 days, you will have a preliminary ruling from the judge on whether your claim is covered. So if the insurance carrier is holding out and not giving you a determination or piecing it apart, you can pull that lever as the consumer, and you can go straight to a judge and have the judge say, no, this is a covered claim under the policy. And then within 180 days, you have to have the court makes a determination of what is covered and how much.
Now, if that were to happen, let's say, and I'm sure attorneys might be involved or attorney costs, who would pay the legal fees? The consumer or the company, or would that determine who was found at fault?
Yeah, the consumer can choose to use a lawyer or not, but the consumer, just like under the other process, the consumer pays their legal fees, the company pays its legal fees. The company under this proposal, though, does pay the cost of the hearing.
I got you. So that sounds like a very reasonable thing to really protect the consumer, and I didn't realize that was such a problem with people filing and then just going on forever.
Yeah, there are a lot of good carriers out there, but there's some really bad ones who will delay things as long as they can. This is largely going to impact the bad insurance carriers.
Right.
And quite frankly, the bad plaintiffs' attorneys who want to draw things out to kind of build up a bigger bank of attorneys' fees. Right.
Sure.
This will protect everybody, but I wanted something that was exclusively focused on the consumer. How do we get that claim adjudicated quickly and fairly? And get some certainty. I mean, if we're going to pay these kind of premiums, we should at least be entitled to some certainty in the process we have to go through.
Sounds like a great move. And well, let me ask you this as we're kind of wrapping up. And I know you've been around doing a number of legislative delegation hearings, and of course, I was able to see you at our local hearing and appreciate all the comments you made. What are some things you're hearing right here in your district? Some of the priorities that some of your constituents have that they voiced to you?
Yeah, everybody's very concerned about affordability. Property tax is number one. It used to be property insurance, now it's property tax. Property tax is number one among my constituents at least. And if you look at, if you just kind of follow the money in this, if you go back 5 years, and I won't name them, but I know of a local city, right? Their population increase was right around 3%. Let's just assign an inflation rate of about 3%. You can manipulate that number a little bit lower if you want. But the revenue that they had coming in from property tax was up about 43%.
Wow.
Right. And so the question is, well, what's happening? Are we getting half again as many services as we got before? So I think there's going to be an intense look, and this is what I hear a lot, but an intense look at how government dollars are being spent and why is government growing at the pace it is growing. And that's where you can find the most property tax relief.
Well, I'm hearing that a lot here. And of course, we passed our own bond referendum, which again adds to the debt service. So that's definitely on our radar as well. So, Tom, I want to thank you for being on today. I've learned a lot already just in our short time here, and look forward to seeing you up in Tallahassee. I'll probably be up there some off and on, and I'll stop by and say hey, and appreciate everything you're doing to serve our district and the state of Florida.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Talk to you later.